Yes, you read that correct. I'm 17 years old and I just bought a Z06. Alright, well, she's a little dirty, so we're going to wash it off first. So we'll head down to the car wash, and then we'll get on with the review. So the Z06. Now, you can pick one of these things up for 40 to 50 grand. And they have about 505 horsepower from factory. So they're pretty peppy. Big old LS7 V8. This is an 07, so it's the C6 generation, and the Z06. And I don't know how exactly their packages work, but I believe it has the performance package. It has an aftermarket exhaust, carbon fiber aero kit on it. So it handles pretty well. Now, let's do a little review of it here. So I'm no car expert, but first, second, and third gear pulls are insane. It pulls pretty hard. And this is pretty much stock. So pulling this hard stock is for $40,000 to $50,000. I don't know of anything else like that. I mean, you have, I've driven a couple things. So I've driven an M340i, an M550i. I've driven an electric M50, which is BMW's electric M car. And what else am I driving? C43 AMG. Yep, I've driven that. So, I haven't driven an insane amount of cars, but I've driven a handful of faster cars. And I would say how this compares is it's not as tight and precise as the German cars. So, how I see it is this thing is more like a meat cleaver. And the German cars are more like a scalpel. This is just big, powerful, raw power, rear-wheel drive, fun, just a sick car. But everybody knows you're coming. It's big, it's loud, it's bright. Whereas all of the other cars I've driven, being the Mercedes and the BMWs, they're more incognito, per se. You can't really tell in some of these newer German cars how much power they're really pushing. Like the M550i. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that's like a 3.9 second 0 to 60. But nobody would really tell. It just looks like a normal sedan unless you know cars and you know what car that is. So this definitely has a better wow factor than that, and a more raw rear-wheel drive, just fun experience in my opinion. I don't think it's as good of a daily driver as the BMWs and AMGs that I've driven. It's a lot more work, shifting, it's manual, all that. So as a daily driver goes, I don't think it's as good, especially when it comes to gas mileage. The gas mileage on this, let's see. Our average fuel economy is 12.6 miles to the gallon. So that's pretty rough. Now you can drive it conservatively and get good fuel economy on the highway. Like I can get like 28 to 30 on the highway, but that's if you're driving it conservatively. If you're not trying to get good fuel economy, 12 to 15 is pretty average. So it's not great in that department. I've also driven in that M3 competition, and this feels like the same, how do I put it? This feels like it has about the same 0 to 60 and the same acceleration, pull, and speed as that M3, but it's just more raw. The M3 is a lot more precise. So let's think of some more driving characteristics of this thing. So the steering feels pretty light. The suspension is stiff. Has to be expected. I mean, it's a Z06. But the suspension is pretty stiff. You can tell, like I said before, it's more of just a meat cleaver instead of a scalpel. It's just got raw power. Now, I'm sure it is pretty fast on a track as well. I haven't taken it on a track yet, but I'm sure it's pretty quick. This guy's just pulling out of nowhere. I don't know, it's just not as tight as German cars, if that makes sense. It's just looser, more playful, but it's just got rapid speed. And then you can mellow it down, put it in 6th gear, cruise on the highway and get 28 miles a gallon and not have any problems. And this road is
oh my god.
All right, well, that was an abrupt stop. Good thing we weren't ripping through here.
So the brakes do pretty well, you would say.
The brakes are on point. The brakes are great. It's got big I think it's 4-piston, huge disc brakes on all fours. But yeah, that's an interesting, the entire road is ripped up. Nice. So, in conclusion, this thing is an animal. This car is so fun. Rear-wheel drive, 6-speed manual, naturally aspirated, just raw, fun, and power. It's pretty precise when you need it to be. It's not the most precise thing I've ever driven. It doesn't feel as tight as some German things, but it's more fun and raw. As a daily driver, I mean, it's decent. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not an amazing daily driver like an M3 or something like that would be. The gas mileage isn't that great if you're on it, especially. Performance and modification wise though, they make so much for this car.
But with the M3s and the AMGs, you don't know what kind of power they're pushing unless you know the car itself. Like with this coming at you, you know you're about to hear some.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And looks-wise, this car gets so many looks and so much attention. It's not even funny. I mean, you can't go anywhere without people looking and asking you about this car. Minimum, if I'm out and about, minimum 3-4 times a day. People just know. So, in that aspect, it's great. Now, the only way I was able to get this car was from my private group. Now, my private group, it's a group, we have 34 members right now of smart, intelligent, hardworking, successful, dedicated guys who are all training hard, who are all making money, and all working on the same mission. We found our niche in crypto, and that's what we've used to make a lot of money so far. So, if you want to buy a car like this at 17 years old, check out the Real Apes.